My name is Cassandra Harper, but everyone calls me Cassie. I'm a 38-year-old single mom and nurse, and I thought I'd seen it all. But nothing could have prepared me for what I found when I walked into my daughter's room that evening. Lydia? I called out, pushing open her door. Honey, I'm home. How was your day with? The words died in my throat. My vibrant, curly-haired 15-year-old sat on her bed, tears streaming down her face. But it wasn't her tears that shocked me. It was her hair, or rather, the complete lack of it. Oh my God, I whispered, rushing to her side. Lydia, what happened? She looked up at me, her eyes red and puffy. Grandma Evelyn, she choked out. She said I was turning into a delinquent. My blood ran cold. Evelyn did this to you? Lydia nodded, fresh tears spilling down her cheeks. I pulled her into my arms, my mind reeling. How could Evelyn, my ex-mother-in-law, do something so cruel? She said my hair was a distraction. Lydia sobbed into my shoulder. That I was spending too much time on it instead of studying. She just grabbed the clippers and I held her tighter, fury building inside me. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I'm so sorry. As I comforted my daughter, my phone buzzed. A text from Evelyn. I've taken care of Lydia's little rebellion. You can thank me later. I nearly threw the phone across the room. Instead, I took a deep breath and turned back to Lydia. We're going to fix this, okay? I promise. A knock at the front door interrupted us. I kissed Lydia's forehead and went to answer it, finding our neighbor, Grant, on the other side. Hey, Cassie, he said with a smile that quickly faded when he saw my face. What's wrong? I hesitated, then stepped aside to let him in. It's Lydia. Evelyn. She shaved her head. Grant's eyes widened.
What?
Why would she do that? Because she's a controlling monster. I spat, then immediately felt guilty. I'm sorry, No, don't apologize, Grant said, placing a comforting hand on my arm. That's awful. Is there anything I can do? I shook my head, fighting back tears of my own. I don't know. I don't even know where to start. Mom, Lydia's voice called from her room. Can you come back? I should go, I told Grant. Thank you for checking in. He nodded, concern etched on his face. I'm here if you need anything, okay? As I closed the door behind him, my phone buzzed again. This time it was my best friend and coworker, Rosa. Girl, you will not believe the day I had. Her text read. Drinks tonight? I typed back quickly. Can't. Family emergency. Evelyn shaved Lydia's head. Rosa's response was immediate. What? I'm coming over. I returned to Lydia's room, finding her examining her reflection in a small mirror. How could she do this, Mom? She asked, her voice small and broken. I sat beside her, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. I don't know, sweetie, but we're going to get through this together, okay? Lydia leaned into me, nodding slightly. What are we going to do? I took a deep breath, my mind racing. How could I protect my daughter from Evelyn's toxic influence when I relied on her for childcare during my long hospital shifts? How could I confront the woman who had been my only support since Eli left? First, I said, trying to sound more confident than I felt, we're going to find you the coolest hats and scarves in town. And then we're going to have a long talk with Grandma Evelyn. As I held my daughter close, I knew one thing for certain. Things were about to change in the Harper household. And Evelyn had no idea what was coming. The next morning, I stood outside Evelyn's pristine Victorian house, my hands shaking with a mix of rage and anxiety. I'd left Lydia with Rosa, unable to face the thought of bringing her here. Taking a deep breath, I rang the doorbell. Evelyn answered with a smile that quickly faded when she saw my face. Cassandra, dear, what brings you here so early? I pushed past her into the foyer. We need to talk about what you did to Lydia. Evelyn's expression hardened. I assume you're referring to her haircut. Really, Cassandra, you should be thanking me. Thanking you? I spat. You shaved my daughter's head without her consent. She needed discipline. Evelyn said, her voice cold. That girl was becoming unmanageable. Always primping, never studying. I did what needed to be done. I clenched my fists, struggling to maintain composure. You had no right. Lydia is my daughter, not your personal project. Evelyn's eyes narrowed. Someone needs to instill proper values in that child. Lord knows you're too busy working to do it yourself.
Her words hit like a slap.
I'd relied on Evelyn for childcare during my long hospital shifts, but at what cost? Lydia is a wonderful, creative girl, I said, my voice shaking. She doesn't need to be fixed or controlled. She needs love and support. Love. Evelyn scoffed. Love without discipline is what ruins children. Look at what happened with Eli. The mention of my ex-husband sent a jolt through me. Don't you dare bring Eli into this. Why not? He's the perfect example of what happens when you let a child run wild. Now he's God knows where, abandoning his responsibilities. I took a step closer to Evelyn, my anger boiling over. You drove Eli away with your controlling behavior, just like you're trying to do with Lydia. But I won't let you. This ends now. Evelyn's facade cracked for a moment, revealing a flicker of fear. What are you saying? I'm saying that you will no longer have unsupervised time with Lydia. If you want to see her, it will be on my terms. You can't do that, Evelyn hissed. You need me. Who else will watch Lydia while you're working those ridiculous shifts? I faltered for a moment, the reality of my situation hitting home. How could I manage without Evelyn's help? As if sensing my doubt, Evelyn pressed on. Face it, Cassandra. You're in over your head. Lydia needs a firm hand, and I'm the only one willing to provide it. I stood there, torn between my need for childcare and my desire to protect Lydia from Evelyn's toxic influence. The weight of single motherhood pressed down on me, threatening to crush my resolve. But then I thought of Lydia's tear-stained face, her beautiful curls reduced to stubble. I couldn't let this continue. No, I said, my voice stronger now. I'll figure something out. But you will not treat Lydia like this ever again. Evelyn's expression hardened. You're making a mistake, Cassandra. That girl needs guidance, structure. Without it, she'll end up just like her father. If by that you mean free from your control, then good, I shot back. Lydia deserves better than this. We both do. As I turned to leave, Evelyn called after me. You'll be back, Cassandra. You can't do this alone. I paused at the door, looking back at the woman who had been both my support and my tormentor for so long. Watch me, I said and walked out. As I drove home, my mind raced. How would I manage work and childcare without Evelyn? But beneath the worry, a sense of relief washed over me. For the first time in years, I felt like I was truly standing up for myself and my daughter. Whatever challenges lay ahead, I knew one thing for certain. Lydia and I would face them together, free from Evelyn's suffocating influence. It was time to reclaim our lives and forge our own path. That night, after tucking Lydia into bed, I found myself staring at an old photo album. My fingers traced the outline of a smiling couple, Eli and me on our wedding day. Evelyn's words echoed in my mind. Look at what happened with Eli. I hadn't thought about my ex-husband in months, but now memories flooded back. Eli, always trying to please his mother, always falling short. The arguments, the tension, the feeling of walking on eggshells in our own home. And then one day, he was just
gone.
A knock at the door startled me from my reverie. I opened it to find Rosa, arms laden with takeout bags. Thought you could use some comfort food, she said, pushing past me into the kitchen. I smiled gratefully. You're a lifesaver. As we settled on the couch with our food, Rosa fixed me with a serious look.
Spilit, chica.
What happened with the Wicked Witch? I recounted my confrontation with Evelyn, ending with my declaration of independence. Rosa hooped, nearly spilling her drink. About time, she exclaimed. But wait, how are you going to manage without her help? I sighed, picking at my food. I have no idea, but I can't let her keep controlling us like this. Rosa nodded, her expression softening. You know, this reminds me of what happened with Eli. I tensed. How so? Remember how he was always trying to please Evelyn? How she'd criticize everything he did? Rosa paused, choosing her words carefully. And then one day, he just couldn't take it anymore. I felt a lump forming in my throat. He left us, Rosa. He abandoned his family. I know, honey. And that was wrong. But can you blame him for wanting to escape Evelyn's control? Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. Had I been so focused on Eli's abandonment that I'd missed the bigger picture?
I
never thought of it that way, I admitted. Rosa squeezed my hand. Maybe it's time to start looking at things differently. For Lydia's sake and your own. As if on cue, there was another knock at the door. This time it was Grant, looking sheepish. Sorry to bother you, he said, but I noticed your porch light was flickering. Thought I could take a look if you want. I hesitated, then stepped aside to let him in. As Grant worked on the light fixture, I found myself opening up about the situation with Evelyn and Lydia. That's rough, Grant said, his voice muffled as he fiddled with the wiring. But you're doing the right thing, standing up for your daughter. Thanks, I said, surprised by how much his support meant to me. I just wish I knew what to do next. Grant emerged from behind the light, wiping his hands on his jeans. Well, for starters, you've got friends who care about you. And if you need help with Lydia while you're at work, I'd be happy to pitch in. I blinked, touched by his offer. Really? You'd do that? He shrugged, a small smile playing on his lips. What are neighbors for? As Grant left, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. Maybe I wasn't as alone in this as I thought. Later that night, as I lay in bed, I found myself thinking about Eli again. Not with anger or resentment, but with a new understanding. He had been Evelyn's first victim, in a way. And while it didn't excuse his actions, it helped me see the situation more clearly. I made a silent promise to myself and to Lydia. We would break this cycle of control and manipulation. We would forge our own path, surrounded by people who truly cared for us. And maybe, just maybe, we'd find a way to heal the wounds of the past, not just for ourselves, but for our whole fractured family. The next few days were a whirlwind of work shifts and juggling Lydia's care between Rosa and Grant. But as the dust settled, I found myself drawn to the attic, where boxes of old family mementos lay forgotten. I pulled down a dusty trunk, coughing as I pried it open. Inside, I found a treasure trove of old photos, letters, and journals. As I sifted through them, a pattern began to emerge, one that made my blood run cold. There were photos of Evelyn with a young woman I'd never seen before, their smiles bright and carefree. But as I flipped through the album, the woman's presence dwindled until she disappeared entirely. A yellowed envelope caught my eye. Inside was a letter, dated nearly 40 years ago. Dearest Evelyn, I can't take it anymore. Your constant criticism, your need to control every aspect of my life, it's suffocating me. I'm leaving, and I beg you not to try to find me. Please, for once, respect my decision. Your sister, Mabel. My hands shook as I read the words. Evelyn had a sister? One she'd driven away with the same controlling behavior she'd used on Eli, on me, on Lydia? I dove deeper into the trunk, uncovering more evidence of Evelyn's manipulative past. There were angry letters from old friends, journal entries detailing her obsession with molding others to her will, even a newspaper clipping about a family feud that had torn the Harpers apart decades ago. As I pieced together this hidden history, my phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. Is this Cassandra Harper? My name is Mabel Thornton. I believe we need to talk about my sister, Evelyn. My heart raced as I quickly replied, setting up a video call for that evening. When Mabel's face appeared on my screen, I was struck by how much she resembled Evelyn, but her eyes were kinder, her smile genuine. Thank you for agreeing to speak with me, Mabel said, her voice warm. I've been following the Harper family from afar for years, and when I heard about what happened to your daughter, well, I knew it was time to reach out. I leaned in, hungry for answers. Mabel, I had no idea Evelyn even had a sister. What happened between you two? Mabel's expression darkened. Evelyn wasn't always like this, you know. But our mother was a harsh woman, always pushing us to be perfect. Evelyn, she internalized that pressure. Started trying to control everything and everyone around her. As Mabel shared story after story of Evelyn's controlling behavior, I felt a mix of validation and horror. It was like looking at a blueprint for my own experiences with my ex-mother-in-law. I tried to stand up to her, Mabel continued, but it only made things worse. In the end, leaving was the only way I could breathe. But why are you reaching out now? I asked. Mabel's eyes filled with tears. Because I see history repeating itself. I couldn't save Evelyn from becoming our mother, but maybe I can help you protect Lydia from the same fate. We talked for hours, Mabel providing insight into Evelyn's psyche that I'd never had before. As we said our goodbyes, promising to stay in touch, I felt a strange mix of emotions: anger at Evelyn's actions, sympathy for the damaged woman behind them, and a fierce determination to break this cycle once and for all. The next morning, I sat Lydia down at the breakfast table. Honey, there's something I need to tell you about Grandma Evelyn. As I shared what I'd learned, careful to present the facts without coloring them with my own emotions, I watched Lydia's face. She moved from shock to anger to a thoughtful frown. So, what do we do now, Mom? She asked finally. I took a deep breath. I'm not sure yet, but whatever we decide, we'll do it together. No more secrets, no more letting Evelyn call all the shots. It's time we took control of our own story. Lydia nodded, reaching across the table to squeeze my hand. In that moment, I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, we'd face them as a team, stronger and wiser than ever before. As the days passed, I watched Lydia with a mixture of pride and concern. The initial shock of her shaved head had worn off, replaced by a fierce determination I'd never seen in her before. One morning, I found her standing in front of the mirror, running her hand over her stubbly scalp. You know what, Mom? She said, catching my eye in the reflection. I think I'm going to keep it short. It feels powerful. I smiled, my heart swelling. It suits you, sweetheart. You look strong. Lydia turned to face me, her expression serious. I feel strong, like I'm finally becoming who I'm supposed to be, not who Grandma Evelyn wants me to be. Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. My daughter was finding her strength, but at what cost? The urge to protect her ward with a newfound respect for her resilience. Later that day, as I was leaving work, Rosa caught up with me in the parking lot. Hey, Chica. How are you holding up? I sighed, leaning against my car. Honestly, I'm not sure. Lydia's doing better than I expected, but I can't shake this anger towards Evelyn. Rosa nodded, her eyes sympathetic. Have you thought about what you're going to do? The question had been haunting me for days. Part of me wants to expose Evelyn's past to everyone. Let the whole community see what she's really like. But, Rosa prompted, but I don't know if that's the right thing to do. Would I be any better than her if I used her secrets as a weapon? Rosa squeezed my arm. Only you can decide that, Cassie. But remember, whatever you choose, you're not alone in this. Her words stayed with me as I drove home, my mind churning with possibilities. When I arrived, I found Gran on my porch, toolbox in hand. Hey, he said, looking slightly embarrassed. I noticed your gutters were clogged. Thought I'd take care of it for you. I felt the rush of warmth at his thoughtfulness. Grant, you don't have to dash. He held up a hand, smiling. I want to. It's what neighbors do, right? As he worked, we chatted about Lydia's progress and my dilemma with Evelyn. Grant listened intently, his brow furrowed in concentration. You know, he said finally, climbing down from the ladder, my old man used to say that the best revenge is living well. Maybe instead of exposing Evelyn, you focus on building the life you and Lydia deserve. His words resonated with me, offering a perspective I hadn't considered. As we said goodbye, I felt a spark of something new, not just gratitude, but a deeper connection I wasn't quite ready to name. That night, as Lydia and I sat down for dinner, I broached the subject that had been weighing on me. Honey, I've been thinking about Grandma Evelyn and everything that's happened. I began cautiously. Lydia looked up, her expression guarded. What about her? I took a deep breath. I'm torn between wanting to expose her behavior to everyone and trying to find a way to move forward without stooping to her level. What do you think? Lydia was quiet for a moment, pushing her food around her plate. I'm angry at her, Mom. Really angry. But I don't think hurting her back will make things better. Her maturity stunned me. You're right. I said softly. So, what do we do? Lydia's eyes met mine, filled with a wisdom beyond her years. We live our lives. We be happy. We show her that she can't control us anymore. In that moment, looking at my brave, resilient daughter, I knew what I had to do. We wouldn't seek revenge, but we wouldn't let Evelyn's toxic influence continue either. We'd set boundaries, stand our ground, and build the life we deserved, together. As we cleared the table, a plan began to form in my mind. It wouldn't be easy, but with Lydia by my side and the support of friends like Rosa and Grant, I felt ready to face whatever came next. The turning point had arrived. It was time to rewrite our story, on our own terms. The day of the family gathering arrived, and I felt my stomach churn with anxiety. Our living room was set up for an intervention of sorts, with chairs arranged in a circle. Lydia stood by my side, her newly buzzed head held high, radiating a quiet strength. As the doorbell rang, I squeezed her hand. Ready? She nodded. Let's do this, Mom. One by one, our relatives filed in. Aunt Susan, Uncle George, cousins I hadn't seen in years. Their eyes widened at Lydia's appearance, but to their credit, they said nothing. And then, there was Evelyn, her face a mask of polite confusion. Cassandra, what's all this about? She asked, her voice sickly sweet. Before I could answer, the final guest arrived. Mabel stepped into the room, and the air seemed to crackle with tension. Evelyn's face drained of color. Mabel, she whispered, what are you doing here? I cleared my throat. Please, everyone, have a seat. We have a lot to discuss. As everyone settled, I took a deep breath and began. I've called you all here because it's time we address the elephant in the room. The manipulation, the control, the damage that's been done to this family for generations. Evelyn's eyes narrowed. I don't know what you're talking about, don't you? Mabel's voice was quiet but firm. Sister, it's time to face the truth. Over the next hour, the floodgates opened. Mabel shared stories of Evelyn's controlling behavior from their childhood. Aunt Susan tearfully recounted how Evelyn had driven a wedge between her and her husband. Even Uncle George, usually so stoic, spoke of the constant criticism he'd endured. Through it all, Evelyn sat rigid, her face a storm of emotions. When Lydia stood to speak, the room fell silent. Grandma, she said, her voice trembling slightly, I know you think you're helping us, but can't you see how much you're hurting everyone? How much you hurt me? Evelyn's facade finally cracked. I never meant to hurt anyone, she whispered, tears welling in her eyes. I just wanted everyone to be their best, to be perfect. But at what cost? I asked, my own voice thick with emotion. You drove Eli away. You nearly destroyed Lydia's self-esteem. When will it be enough? The room was heavy with unspoken pain and long-buried resentments. But as I looked around at my family, I saw something else too, a glimmer of hope, a chance for healing. Evelyn's shoulders sagged, the fight seeming to leave her. I don't know how to be any different, she admitted, her voice small and broken. It was Mabel who moved first, crossing the room to kneel beside her sister. It's not too late to learn, she said gently. We can help you if you'll let us. I watched as years of tension seemed to dissolve between the sisters. Evelyn reached out tentatively, grasping Mabel's hand like a lifeline. Turning to me, her eyes brimming with tears, Evelyn spoke. Cassandra, Lydia, can you ever forgive me? The room held its breath, waiting for my response. I felt the weight of generations on my shoulders, the cycle of hurt and control that had defined our family for so long. In that moment, I knew I had a choice, to perpetuate the cycle or to break it once and for all. I looked at Lydia, seeing in her eyes the same decision being made. Together, we stepped forward. It won't be easy, I said, my voice steady. There's a lot of hurt to work through, but if you're willing to try to really change, then yes, we can work on forgiveness. Lydia nodded, adding, but things have to be different, Grandma. No more controlling, no more criticism. We need to build something new. As Evelyn nodded, tears streaming down her face, I felt a shift in the room. It was as if a great weight had been lifted, allowing us all to breathe freely for the first time in years. The path ahead wouldn't be easy, but as I looked around at my family, broken, healing, but together, I knew we had taken the first step towards something better. The masks had fallen, the truth was out, and now, finally, we could begin to rebuild. The days following the family gathering were a whirlwind of emotions. I found myself oscillating between hope for a new beginning and the lingering anger from years of hurt. Lydia, ever perceptive, noticed my internal struggle. "Mom," she said one evening as we sat on the porch swing, "what are we going to do about Grandma Evelyn?" I sighed, running a hand through my hair. "I don't know, sweetie. Part of me wants to cut her out of our lives completely." Lydia was quiet for a moment, then said, "But that's not really what you want, is it?" Her words hit me like a thunderbolt. She was right. As much as Evelyn had hurt us, the thought of severing ties completely felt wrong. I realized then that revenge, in any form, wouldn't heal our wounds. It would only create new ones. The next day, I called a family meeting. Lydia, Evelyn, and I sat around our kitchen table, the tension palpable. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," I began, my voice steadier than I felt. "And I've realized something important. We can't change the past, but we can choose how we move forward." Evelyn's eyes widened, a flicker of hope crossing her face. "What are you saying, Cassandra?" I took a deep breath. "I'm saying that I want to give you a chance to make amends. Not just for Lydia's sake, but for all of us." The room fell silent. Lydia looked at me, surprise and admiration in her eyes. Evelyn seemed to be holding her breath. But I continued, my voice firm. "It won't be easy. We need to set clear boundaries. And I think we all need to start therapy, together and separately." Evelyn's lip trembled. "You do that? Give me another chance." "We would," Lydia chimed in, her voice strong. "But things have to change, Grandma. Really change." To my surprise, Evelyn nodded vigorously. "Yes, of course. I'll do anything. I don't want to lose you both." As we hashed out the details, weekly family therapy sessions, clear rules about respect and personal boundaries, I felt a weight lifting from my shoulders. This wasn't about forgetting the past. It was about choosing a different future. Later that evening, as I recounted the conversation to Rosa over the phone, she let out a low whistle.
Wow, chica.
"That's not what I expected. Are you sure about this?" I glanced out the window, where Lydia and Evelyn were tentatively working together in the garden, planting new flowers. "I'm sure it won't be easy. But yes, I think this is the right path." "You're a stronger woman than me," Rosa said, admiration in her voice. "But I'm proud of you, Cassie. This takes real courage." As I hung up, a knock at the door startled me. It was Grant, a concerned look on his face. "Hey, I saw Evelyn's car. Everything okay?" I smiled, touched by his concern. "Actually, yeah, we're working on it." I filled him in on our decision, watching his expression change from worry to amazement. "Cassie, that's incredible. You're giving your family a real shot at healing." His words warmed me, and I felt a flutter in my chest that had nothing to do with family drama. "Thank you, Grant, for everything. Your support has meant more than you know." He smiled, his eyes soft. "Anytime, Cassie. I'm here, whatever you need." As he left, I turned back to watch Lydia and Evelyn in the garden. They were laughing at something, the sound carrying through the open window. It was a small moment, but it felt like the first ray of sunlight after a long storm. I knew the road ahead would be challenging. There would be setbacks, old hurts resurfacing, new boundaries to navigate. But watching my daughter and her grandmother tentatively rebuilding their relationship, I felt a surge of hope. This was our chance to break the cycle of hurt and control that had defined our family for generations. It wouldn't be easy, but as I stood there, watching the two most important women in my life begin to heal, I knew it would be worth it. The path of forgiveness and growth stretched out before us, uncertain but full of possibility. And for the first time in years, I felt truly ready to face whatever came next, not alone, but as a family, flawed but healing, together. 6 months had passed since our family's confrontation, and the change was palpable. Lydia's hair had grown into a stylish pixie cut, a physical manifestation of her newfound confidence. As I watched her laughing with her friends in our backyard, I marveled at her resilience. "She's flourishing," Evelyn said softly, joining me at the window. Our relationship was still a work in progress, but the weekly therapy sessions had made a world of difference. I nodded, smiling. "She really is. And so are you, Evelyn." Evelyn's eyes misted over. "I never thought I could change, Cassandra. Thank you for giving me the chance." Our moment was interrupted by the doorbell. It was Grant, toolbox in hand as usual. "Hey, Cassie. Just want to check if that leaky faucet is still giving you trouble." I felt a familiar flutter in my chest. "Actually, I think I've got it under control. But would you like to stay for dinner?" His smile lit up his face. "I'd love to." As we all gathered around the dinner table, Lydia, Evelyn, Grant, and me, I was struck by how far we'd come. The tension that once defined our family dinners had been replaced by genuine warmth and laughter. Lydia regaled us with stories from her art class, where she'd started a project inspired by our family's journey. "I'm calling it Roots and Wings," she explained. "It's about how our past shapes us, but doesn't have to define us." Evelyn reached out, gently squeezing Lydia's hand. "That's beautiful, dear. I can't wait to see it." After dinner, as Grant and I cleaned up, he turned to me with a serious expression. "Cassie, I've been meaning to ask you something." My heart raced. "Yes. Would you like to go out sometime? Just the two of us." I felt a smile spread across my face. "I'd love that, Grant." Later that evening, as I sat on the porch swing, I reflected on the whirlwind of the past few months. Our story had spread through the community, inspiring others to confront their own family issues. I'd even started a support group for people dealing with toxic family dynamics. Lydia joined me, resting her head on my shoulder. "Mom, do you ever wonder what would have happened if we'd chosen revenge instead of forgiveness?" I wrapped an arm around her. "Sometimes. But I think we made the right choice. Revenge might have felt good for a moment, but this feels like healing." "I'm proud of us," Lydia said softly. "And I'm proud of Grandma, too. She's really trying." I kissed the top of her head. "Me too, sweetheart. Me too." As if on cue, my phone buzzed with a text from Evelyn. "Thank you for today. For everything. I love you both." Tears pricked my eyes as I showed the message to Lydia. We'd come so far from that devastating day when I'd found her with her head shaved. The road hadn't been easy, and there were still challenges ahead, but we were facing them together. I thought about Eli, wondering if he'd ever know how much we'd grown in his absence. Part of me hoped he'd find his way back to us someday, but I knew now that our happiness didn't depend on his return. As the sun set, casting a warm glow over our neighborhood, I felt a deep sense of peace settle over me. We had broken the cycle of hurt and control that had defined our family for generations. In its place, we'd built something new, a foundation of love, respect, and understanding. I looked at Lydia, her face serene in the fading light, and felt a surge of pride and love. We'd weathered the storm together, emerging stronger and more united than ever before. Whatever the future held, new challenges, deepening relationships, unexpected twists and turns, I knew we were ready to face it. Not as perfect people, but as a family committed to growth, forgiveness, and unconditional love. As the first stars appeared in the twilight sky, I made a silent promise to myself and to Lydia. We would continue to nurture these new beginnings, to cherish the hard-won peace we'd found, and to always choose love over resentment. In the end, that was the greatest revenge of all, not just surviving, but thriving, and creating a legacy of healing that would ripple out far beyond our little family. It was a new chapter, full of hope and possibility, and I couldn't wait to see where it would lead us.